Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. So we just got the Mandalorian Season 3 premiere, Chapter 17, The Apostate, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. This was a fantastic opening episode to the new season. In my opinion, it had everything a Star Wars fan could want for the next chapter of this story. Everything was well contextualized, the structure was simple, no time was wasted, and the episode on the whole was really fun. The runtime of 38 total minutes, including the intro, the recap, and credits, despite being on the shorter end, was just right. And the ending teased what's to come very nicely, really well wrapped up. We had some incredible Easter eggs, callbacks, and we finally know what happened to Cara Dune, not to mention a massive setup for Ezra Bridger's return and the Ahsoka show. So no more jibber jabber, grab a snack or your beverage of preference, let's get straight into the breakdown. Our episode begins in a very unique way with a Mandalorian initiation ceremony for one of the Foundlings. The Coverts have left Glavis Ringworld and have settled down elsewhere. As Pedro Pascal promised, this season is full of Mandalorian tradition and lore, and we see that right from the get-go. The armourer forges a helmet for the Foundling, which is very similar to that of Paz Vizsla. This Foundling is called Ragnar, and is brilliantly portrayed by Wesley Kimmel, the same kid who played the young Tusken in the Book of Boba Fett. The armourer makes him swear to never remove his helmet in a very important pledge of allegiance, and the visual symbolism of baptism in water is very much present. In an interview that Jon Favreau gave yesterday, he mentioned how biblical imagery was something they were inspired by when it came to the religious aspects of the tribe, and Mandalorian creed more generally. In the crowd we do see a familiar Mandalorian, Paz Vizsla, as well as other tribe Mandos and of course, more Foundlings. They are the future as the armourer once reminded us. Out of nowhere, a crocodilic sea monster emerges. I guess Mandalorians were on the menu that day. I really love that every opening episode of The Mandalorian so far has included a creature. The visual effects on them are outstanding. We had the Ravenak in Chapter 1, the Krayt Dragon in Chapter 9, the Sand Beast in the Book of Boba Fett's opening episode, and now, this thing. It looks a little bit like a Nashta, but it's more alligator and armadillo-like. And guess who comes to save the day in the N1 starfighter? Din Djarin and Grogu, but the armor is underwhelmed. She reminds him that he removed his helmet, and so he is a Mandalorian no more. If you remember in the Book of Boba Fett, she told Din that to atone for his sins, he has to seek out the living waters under the mines of Mandalore, and again in this episode, she reminds him that atonement is impossible because those mines were destroyed. Mandalore is shattered and glassed. It was crystallized by fusion rays, but Din presents a shard from Mandalore's surface, a relic which he got from Jawas, who came across a traveller claiming to have visited Mandalore. So Din makes a deal with the armourer. If he can prove that he went to Mandalore and bathed in the living waters, the decree of exile will be lifted and he'll be allowed back into the tribe, and so the armourer agrees, simply saying, "This is the way." Mando and Grogu set off on their adventure, and in hyperspace, we see live-action Purrgil, the space whales from Star Wars Rebels that transported Ezra and Thrawn into the unknown in the Star Wars Rebels Season 4 finale. This, in my opinion, is huge foreshadowing for the Ahsoka show and the eventual return of Ezra. Grogu watches on in amazement, and maybe just like Ezra, Grogu too has a connection to them. You never know. I've always said Ezra would be a perfect mentor to him. When it comes to Jedi discipline, Ezra is much more lenient than Luke, if of course Grogu ever chooses the way of the Jedi again, but for now, he's staying with Din. But Mando has one stop along the way, good old Nevarro, an iconic planet for the show that appears in every season. Life is thriving, Kowakian monkey lizards are laughing, the same species as Salacious Crumb. Now we did see some of these in the first season being spit roasted, but now they're part of the marvellous natural order of things on the planet. There's greenery, there are trees, the citizens seem happy, and we see many familiar species such as Mon Calamari, the same race as Admiral Akbar and Raddus. In the background of one shot, we see what looks to be R5-D4. I just think it's a similar droid, just a similar pattern, because at this time, R5 would be on Tatooine with Pelimoto. We also see a white protocol droid walk past them. She looks a lot like K-3PO from Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, but that droid had masculine programming and this one feminine, and the one from Empire was destroyed, so again, just a look-alike. Mando and Grogu stop in front of the iconic statue of IG-11. Now, a lot of the plot surrounding this droid confirms some of the leaks. Big spoiler warning for the future of the show. By the end of the season, IG-11 will be rebuilt and used as a mecha suit for Grogu. This is much further down the line, because Mando's intentions to rebuild him now is so he has a droid to accompany him and Grogu to Mandalore. It's also a security thing, considering the unknowns and the dangers since the Empire wreaked havoc on the planet. But first things first, we reunite with Greef Karga, who looks amazing. Carl Weathers never ceases to make me smile every time he appears, and this time he's got some droids of his own, including 2 Teletubby-like ones who hold up his robes from behind. Greef tells Mando how good things are in Nevarro, how much it's prospering since he became High Magistrate. Business, commerce, and real estate are all thriving, and Greef tries to entice Mando to retire there. We later learn his motive to make Din stay, because he wants him to become Marshal, and later we learn what finally happened to Cara Dune. She was recruited by Special Forces after Moff Gideon was arrested. Her talents are being used elsewhere. Gideon himself faces legal action and probably prison, but Greef doesn't seem to trust the New Republic. He expresses his desire to make Nevarro independent. Let's put a pin in that idea because it is going to be important later on. Our favourite High Magistrate in the majestic red robes is then informed they have some unwanted visitors, a pirate gang who was sent by a certain Gorian shard. They try to get into what they believe is a saloon, but it's actually the school we saw in Season 2, which apparently was paid for by Greef's cut of the pirate gang's boss. The teacher protocol droid, who we also saw in Chapter 12, is the one barring their access. Greef tries to de-escalate the situation, but they keep getting more and more agitated. A Western-style standoff ensues, and with Mando's help, they gun down most of them, but not Vane, the Nikto. As they walk through town, Greef asks Din what he can provide for him. Mando points up to the IG-11 statue and expresses a desire to rebuild him because the statue did use some of his parts, the ones that remained, and so they get to work. With IG eventually connected to power, he activates, but his old programming is still there, of destroying the asset, as we saw in Chapter 1. Luckily though, the statue in Greef's office falls on him and he's deactivated, after a hilarious sequence where he went absolutely ballistic. Despite Greef Karga's skepticism that this is a good idea, he tells Din that Nevarro has attracted some of the best droidsmiths in the Outer Rim, the Anzellans, the same species as Babu Frik from The Rise of Skywalker. They get to work and inform Mando that they require a missing part, his memory circuit. If Din can find it, they'll be able to fully restore IG-11, something Greef thinks is impossible. Now how is Mando gonna do this? Could he come across a rebuilt IG-88? Could that be the answer? Now you might be saying IG-88 is dead, but just like IG-11, he can be and has been rebuilt. What an amazing tie into The Empire Strikes Back that would be. In this same scene when Grogu squeezes that Anzellan, I laugh so hard. It's a moment I think we all saw coming. It's too tempting not to have the two puppets interact, Grogu and this Babu Frick-like fella. It was so adorable but hilarious. Now I should also say from the credits we learned that Shirley Henderson, the wonderful actress who voiced Babu Frick, was back for this episode. Amazing stuff. Now before we see that amazing chase sequence between the pirates and Din, we see a crucial moment in their story arcs. Mando is being fatherly and teaching Grogu about what a hyperspace map is, and the various sort of alerts in the ship. I think this is really important for the future and for Grogu's development. We're going to see a lot more of this in this season. During the chase sequence, the ship of the ghastly Gorian shard guy is inspired by the Eclipse-class Dreadnaughts. So after escaping the pirates, Mando goes to that green planet we saw in some of the trailers. It is in fact Kalevala, one of the planets in the Mandalore system, the homeworld of House Kreese, and the birthplace of the deceased Duchess Satine. It's where Bo-Katan's throne is, and where Din goes to see her in this episode. She is deflated. After she didn't return with the Darksaber in Chapter 16, she was abandoned by her clan, and now she feels alone and that all hope is lost to restore Mandalore. Din tells her it's not too late. He wants to join forces with her, and after he admits he still has the legendary Mandalorian weapon created by Tar Vizsla, she says that he's the one who should lead. Having the Darksaber after winning it from Moff Gideon entitles him to the throne, but he's a reluctant wielder. That's not what he wants to do. His priority is redeeming himself, and despite her insistence that the legends surrounding the mines of Mandalore are just superstition, he still says he's gonna do it, atone for the sin of removing his helmet, and so our episode ends. Now I've got to admit guys, when it comes to Bo-Katan, I still hold the view that she needs someone to give her a confidence again. This should be Sabine Wren. Despite the fact she's off with Ahsoka looking for Ezra, Sabine needs to come back for just a day or so, to remind Bo of why she once believed in her, why she handed her the Darksaber in the first place. Bo-Katan needs that, and it was rather sad seeing her so down on her luck and bitter. But I think that eventually will change, and with Din and the other tribes, they will work together for the greater good of their people, the Mandalorians. So for me, this episode was a 10 out of 10, a great way to start the season. Rick Famuyiwa did a great job on the directing, and the writing by Jon Favreau following the book of Boba Fett truly blew me away, and I trust them with this phenomenal story. But share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Did you enjoy this episode? Why so or why not? What would you rate it out of 10? I will be posting many more videos breaking down certain aspects over the next week or so look out for those. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always.